chair, Mr.
Discuss.
Are you going down there too?
Thank you.
Sit here and then Paula can sit there. And just,
Oh, Paula is not sitting here.
are you going to push the
Yeah.
things?
No, no problem.
Is this on?
Yes, they are.
We have 6 of our council members again in attendance, and Councilmember Osborne is family requirement in another part of the country. And we do not need to excuse her for this, obviously. We have 2 items on our agenda. One is to receive an update related to the progress and direction for higher education, and John Fischbach will present that. And then we'll go to a presentation about the history and vision of the city center, as well as the overview of Phase 1 of the project. That's the way it was planned. We've reversed it. We're going to go now with the city center first, and then we'll do the university second. Okay? I'm sorry. And we had to change it because of difficulty in getting Dr. Crow here on time. So we'll see if he can make it. Okay. Mr. Fischbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We're here today to reacquaint the council and the public on the City Center project. We realize that it's been a while since we have given any type of update to this project, and many of the council members and city staff have been working on this project for years and years, and we appreciate that. So we want to review the historical process that the city has gone through to get to this point and review information that's available to us leading up to a work session in October or a council decision in October that's a go or a no-go decision point. And that will be the point at which the City Council needs to say whether or not we are going to proceed into contract with Langford and Associates or not, and or whether we're going to invoke up to a 3-year delay. I want to review quickly the current team that's working on this, and I'd like them to stand up. And I don't want any applause until we're completed with it, but if they are present, they could stand up so that we all can recognize them. The city staff team right now is Brian Dalkey, Brett Birmingham, Kathy Fernandez, Keith Brown, Kim Bradford, Mike Zvetz, Paula Elardo, and Regis Reed. We want to thank all of them very much for their hard work on this phase of the planning. The development team members who are present this evening, and if they could stand up also so that the public can know who they are, Rob Langford and Mary Pampu from Langford and Associates, Harmon Anderson with Phelps Development, Blake Christian, Eric Wilson, and Jed Beos from Hensel Phelps Construction, Eric Judson and Kevin Haley from JMI Sports, and Steve Schrader and Ken Calla from Carrier Johnson Architects. The finance team members that are working with us are from the city staff, Larry Lang, our finance director, and Anna Dizak, and then Scott Ruby from Gus Rosenfeld, and Larry Gibbon from Wedbush. This is the team that's working so diligently to bring this forward, and I'd like us all to acknowledge them with a brief round of applause. I also want to thank all of the other staff that are involved in this in support. This is a tremendous undertaking that the city has in place, and we're meeting with Langford and all of the development team that you just met on a weekly basis in order to bring this to a conclusion. Let me review briefly the upcoming meetings that we will have on this so that there's no misunderstanding as to what the process is, and we're not trying to hide things tonight. We're just trying to be as transparent as possible. We will begin this presentation with the vision, the history, and the role of downtowns to reacquaint the council and the public with the importance of that information. We have a great deal to cover in today's meeting. We will give first an overview on the project. We will address budget and funding sources and the arts. Finally, we will discuss the project timing, the new basement element, and our potential LEED certification. At the 9/21, so at the September 21st work session, we will give a design overview, discuss floor plans with a focus on the first floor and public access to the facilities. We are partnering in a traffic study with SunMP, and we will be reviewing that with the council and discussing the use of roundabouts in place of traffic lights in various areas of the future downtown. 2 open houses for the public are planned for September 22nd and September 23rd to reacquaint our citizens with the project and to receive comments on the current plan. On 9/28, we will return with public meeting input, what we heard at the 2 meetings, but the main emphasis of that meeting will be about finance. We will discuss budget details, the IOB, the interim office building reuse needs, and the costs, and we will have a guaranteed maximum price for the development. We can then discuss financing options, a debt schedule, and ongoing O&M costs. To determine our financing capabilities, we will be considering every factor that can affect our budget, including how the state's action to reduce commercial property tax rates will negatively affect Goodyear's assessed valuation and our ability to borrow money. We have left the October 5th meeting open, work session open, and we will continue to do so should there be a need for additional questions or additional information that some of the council members may want, so that we can be well prepared for the decision point of October 19th. At this point, I'd like to introduce Vice Mayor Georgia Lord, who as a citizen served as chair of the City Center Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC. She will talk about the vision and acquaint us with the history of this project. Georgia?
Thank you, John. I'm honored to be asked to give this portion of the presentation. A 20-year-long process began back in 1988 when a 200-acre parcel encompassing the 4 corners of Yuma, Estrella Parkway were chosen as a future city center site. This site was chosen because Goodyear owns this northwest quadrant. The remaining 3 quadrants are owned by SunMP. The project was fleshed out even further in the 1990s when ASU students took it on as a project. But we really began planning this in earnest in 2004. At that time, we kicked off the city center planning process at a public meeting at Pebble Creek. The 25-member City Center Technical Advisory Committee, known as TAC, was formed to guide the city center process. I was extremely honored to be the TAC chairman, along with Jamie Cavalier, who was the co-chair. The committee held dozens of meetings over the 2.5-year period, as well as several citywide public comment meetings. The City Center project became a passion for me, as well as many of the committee members who recognized that Goodyear needed a downtown to serve as the heart and the soul of our community. This evening, I'm going to read the names of the members of the 2004 City Center Committee. If any of you happen to be in the audience, please stand as I read your name. Fred Amateur, Irene Aguilera, Gabriel Bay, Christy Birdsell, John Chopas, Harold Coleman, Jennifer De La Gaza, Barney Helmick, Margaret Horseman, Peter Lampierre, Sherry Laritano, John Leach, Sue Linney, Harold Maston, Bonnie Mostert, Julie Richard, Lee Stubbs, Lee Swafford, Todd Tupper, Tyler Williams, Matt Winslow, Ken Woods, Steve Yamamori. Would you please give them a round of applause? Most of them aren't here, but they need it. We really thank them for the time, the effort, and the dedication they put into this committee. We held a very exciting 3-day comprehensive charrette, which is a planning process compressed into a short timetable. These were very successful work sessions attended by approximately 400 people over a 3-day period. You know, you could just feel the excitement and the anticipation in the room. We had strollers, toddlers, we had elderly, we had middle-aged, we had teenagers there. It was most exciting. It laid a great groundwork for the future. During the planning process, the development team came up with 3 interesting alternative plans. And you can see those on the screen. The TAC took the plans out to public meetings, as well as sending every Goodyear household an 8-page packet of information. More than 100 people showed up to our public meetings, and 800 households gave us written feedback on plans showing how involved our residents were in this process. Based on all the input, the consultants developed great connectivity between the 4 quadrants. All are connected in 3 ways, via the Goodyear Boulevard on the outside, an inner loop road, and an Arroyo walking path. Now, we felt we were really off and running. We decided to start with the Northwest Civic Quadrant because the city owned that. We know the Civic Quadrant will be capable of standing alone as our downtown for a long time, until the 3 quadrants are built out in the next 20 years to come. We want the Civic Quadrant to be the core of our new downtown, and it will be. A place for gatherings and events, for shopping, for relaxing, for recreation. You know, it's going to be a place where people can live, work, and play. We know if we build the facilities our residents want, they will come to the city center. While we were working on the master plan, we went out for our 2007 citizen survey. We asked them what important services they felt the city was lacking. The number 1 answer was the library, which is planned in Phase 1. There was an equal desire to have a multi-gen recreation center, which is currently planned in the future phase. Having a library not only benefits our citizens, but it will also benefit our university partners. By the mid-2007, we were working with the universities, and they wanted to locate to the city center. So we redid the plan to include the 100-acre parcel to the north that the city owns, which was originally planned as a metropolitan park. It was reconfigured as 60 acres for the university, 40-acre public park, proving how flexible our plans must be so we can be ready for whatever development opportunities the future holds. So that's it, folks. That's the history. That's the vision of our future city center. And now, John, would you please update us on the project as it stands today?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Lord. I'm sure that the history of the vision will be very valuable to others like me who are relatively new to Goodyear. One of the things that made me want to work for the city was the fact that the city was looking at building a new downtown from scratch, and the incredibly innovative approach that the council and the city staff had taken to achieve this project for the residents. Before I get into details about the project, I want to comment on the importance of downtowns to a city's image and its economic growth and stature. Since I was not here during most of this process and only came in the last year of a 20-year process, I'm less vested than many people in this project, and I feel I can speak from a pretty neutral point of view. I have worked in 5 cities over my career and have studied cities throughout the 34 years as a city manager, and I can attest to things that make those cities great. The greatest cities in the world, and the factor that was in most of the cities that I worked in, is that they had one thing in common: a dynamic downtown. First, it serves as a place that gives an identity to our city. This is the picture that we show on everything, and it's how we identify Goodyear. Secondly, it will help instill pride in our residents. People who currently seem to take more pride in living in their individual master planned communities than in the city of Goodyear. Third, having a dynamic downtown helps you compete better in economic development with other cities that already have a dynamic core. It shows that we are innovative and progressive, not a stagnant city. One that is creating jobs. Investing in ourselves shows others who consider investing in us how confident we are in the future. Fourth, I have heard since I got here that we want to take Goodyear to that next level. To do that, we will eventually need a dynamic and progressive downtown where civic institutions and residential, retail, and office are all intermingled to create an exciting and stimulating community. We are off to such a great start. The City Council has brought the ballpark into the city. The Cincinnati Reds are moving into the city, and that will be October 16th. We have the Cancer Treatment Center in the city today. We have the new mall that will be under construction sometime in the near future. And these are all things that are providing us with a great city. A downtown, a dynamic downtown, is the thing that's missing. Is now the time to move forward? We can't answer that question this evening, but you will have to answer it on October 19th when the City Council takes a vote as to whether this is a go or a no-go at this particular time. To build out the city center vision, we knew it was going to take more money and capabilities than the city possessed. The city government did not want to be in charge of anything except public buildings and public spaces like parks and plazas, which we know how to do pretty well. We knew we needed a private sector company to help us build the non-public buildings. We also needed a marketing arm and leasing agent for residential and commercial buildings on our land. So we decided to form a unique partnership with a developer who would help us plan the entire area, would work with a builder to build all of the buildings, and would take over the residential and commercial portion of the northwest quadrant so that the city could run its public buildings and spaces. In January 2008, we sent out an RFQ nationally to seek a development team to join us in the public-private partnership. We selected Goodyear Civic Center Developers, LLC, led by Langford and Associates, a company experienced team with public-private partnerships and many successful projects. After negotiations and preliminary site plans, we hired the group in October 2008. One of the biggest questions is the delay. Is a delay going to happen? We wanted to make sure that we had that ability, and so the one provision I want to pull out of the contract to review with the City Council is the delay provision. Based on today's economy, the key provision in our agreements with the private development team is the city's 36-month delay provision. We must decide, the city must decide, to either postpone construction or to sever all agreements. The cost of postponing or severing would be $1 million already paid by the developer. Langford has already paid us $1 million. We have set that money aside into a separate account, and so if we have to repay it, it will not cost the city anything on its books. We will just take the money from the account and pay it back to Langford. If the guaranteed maximum price of the project, the GMP, is accepted by the city, the $1 million prepayment is no longer refundable. However, if the city and developer can't come to agreement on the GMP, the contract terminates. I just wanted to bring up this key provision in our contracts so that you understand there is some flexibility in the timing of this project as we proceed. At this point, we'd like to have a brief flyover of the City Hall project. If the, that's it. Thank you. If you could key it up. This just shows you some of the aspects of the building and the facilities and how exciting it will be. This, of course, is the City Hall, a 4-story building. And you've seen this before, but we're reviewing it again for the members of the public that may not have seen it.
Although it said, let's move in.
This is the council chambers and the plaza. The council chambers is about 7,200 square feet, and the City Hall facility is about 102,000 square feet.
John, while this is going, is it okay to ask you a question?
Go ahead.
The GMP estimate on the 28th of September is not the same agreement on GMP deadline, right? Those are two different-
Yes.
Two different, the
Yes.
estimate is one thing, the agreement on the GMP is once we decide to go.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. This is a southwest view of the City Hall. This view of the 109,000 square foot City Hall with its red sandstone wall is from the southwest angle. Notice the cafe down at the umbrellas that will be outside the small retail area that we have in City Hall. We envision a small coffee shop there. There will be about 863 square feet. The dramatic pointed roof covers the 7,200 square feet of council chamber. The chamber will seat about 200 people. The public plaza is in the foreground with the trees. The 30,000 square foot library has a courtyard that lets the outside in and connects directly to the Arroyo and the future 4-acre public park. If we could start that flyover, please. This shows you the library from the different angles. And as I mentioned, it's 30,000 square feet. That's a small amphitheater that we have planned into the facility. Thank you. This shows the entrance to the 30,000 square foot library and its many shade features. Now we will have a flyover of the library interior, if that could start, please. You'll notice the computers throughout the library. Thank you. Let's take a look at the phasing of the project as it currently exists. In Phase 1, which we are planning now, we are including a 30,000 square foot library, a single story, a 4-story City Hall, almost 110,000 square feet, gross square feet, and a public plaza and public surface parking. Infrastructure improvements will include the northwest portion of the Arroyo, Goodyear Boulevard, Loop Road northwest between Estrella and Yuma, the inner Loop Road between Estrella and Yuma, the east-west road connection between the Inner Loop Road Northwest and Goodyear Boulevard Northwest, a main pedestrian plaza, the Civic Plaza, next to the City Hall, and all related landscaping. Phase 2 adds retail and office uses near the intersection of Estrella Parkway and Yuma Road. Phase 3 builds the 4-acre park, the nearby multi-generational center, and the first residential building. Phase 4 introduces the Performing Arts Center, as well as more residential, retail, and parking. Phase 5 adds the second phase of City Hall and final office and parking structures and will bring us to build-out. Timing of these phases will be dictated by the state of the economy, since they will be market-driven. Of course, we all hope that the phases come sooner rather than later, so Goodyear can become the vibrant community we all envision. At build-out, the city will control about half of the usable acreage, not counting streets and other infrastructure, and about 30% of the square footage. The city will have a 4-acre park and about 418,000 square feet, and the developer will have about 1.2 million square feet. Where are we now? In the event that it looks like that we will not be able to fund the current plan of building both the library and City Hall as has been anticipated, we are looking at several other options for phasing the city center project that may be less costly. Number one, of course, is the do-nothing option. We can keep a close eye on the economy to see when it may be more feasible to build. We have the 3-year delay clause in the contract with Langford that will allow us to do this. We will still have to do some minor infrastructure because the site was a former SAT site. Secondly, we are looking at the costs of building just the library and not City Hall, but adding the 4-acre park, which is currently not planned until Phase 3. It would seem a good fit with a freestanding library and would create a gathering space if we no longer had the City Hall Plaza as public space, and could also give us a place to hold special events right away in the city center. Third, we're looking at building the City Hall with the library included on the second floor, with it open to our lobby, using the proceeds that would build the library in addition to us putting it into City Hall. We would push the departments currently planned for the second floor to the empty third floor. When the city needed the space on the second floor, a separate library building could be built at that later date. A variation on number 3 would be to add the 4-acre public park so that we can bring city events into the city center right away. We are still working on the current option of City Hall and Library as separate buildings, as well as looking at what other options we may be able to bring forward for consideration. So where are we now on the current plan? Design documents are at 100%. Construction documents are at 30%. Floor plans have been completed. We currently think we are at silver LEED levels. We will determine whether long-term O&M efficiencies are worth the extra upfront costs to stay within range of silver. We have added a basement to the City Hall facility to handle the back of house and mechanical needs. So let me address that for a moment. Adding the basement was a critical move for an urban project of this size. By urban, I mean architecture that is four-sided, that has no back door. For as much square footage as we are building, and for multiple buildings, we required a central plant and chiller unit for LEED certified efficiencies. This will accommodate the future needs of an expanded City Hall also. We also gained space for garbage trucks to come in and turn around, and gained secure storage space for equipment for the future 4-acre park and plaza. While we are still working on the layout for the basement, We will have enough space to accommodate about 34 parking spaces at costs more equivalent to surface parking spaces. By digging the basement, we can use the soil excavated to help with the infill that is needed throughout the area because of it being a SAT site. What it means to us financially is that the total cost of the basement is $2.6 million. However, we have to look at what costs are we avoiding by spending this $2.6 million. And we're avoiding the no deep foundations needed, $400,000, less fill soil to import, about $50,000, no need for separate central plant, $1.5 million, fewer surface parking spaces, $55,000, for a total of $2,005,000. That leaves us a net cost in adding the basement of $595,000, and that's what we would divide into the 34 spaces to see what the cost per space is.
And with the giving up of evidently the parking places or cutting back spaces, what's that going to do for employee parking and customer parking?
Let's see. I'll address that in a moment.
Okay.
Thank you. Scope of Phase 1. The public library, the first floor, is roughly 29,000 square feet, plus 4,880 square feet of courtyard. City Hall, 4 floors and a basement, total build-out, 109,000 square feet, and 28,000 square feet of basement. And that's tenant improved, 73,800 gross square footage. City offices and lobby take up 65,000 square feet of that. Council chambers are 7,200 square feet of that. And the retail at the corner, I apologize, I said 863, it's 823 square feet. And the APS space, because they are an important partner of ours in the current City Hall, and they definitely want to be in this City Hall, and it's advantageous to us to have them there, is 783 square feet. The shelled areas are 30,077 square feet, or 28% of the project for expansion. The entire third floor, which is roughly 26,000 square feet, and the other expansion spaces throughout the City Hall of 4,013 square feet. The infrastructure is the plaza and the streets, including the utilities and the arroyo. The permanent financing that we're taking a look at is, first of all, no general funds are going into this project. This is an important point for us to consider in looking at all of the planning, that no general funds are going into this project. Only GO bonds and impact fees will be used, as well as $1.5 million paid by the developer. GO bonds are for public buildings, and we have $45 million in authorization from the voters of GO bonds. We have $10 million in GO bonds approved for the infrastructure of City Hall, of City Center. So we have $55 million approved. And as you can see on the table, we have the 45 GO bonds buildings, the $45 million over in the total column. The GO bonds infrastructure, we have $10 million. Development impact fees, $9.8 million. Developer buy-in, $1.5 million. General funds, $0. The total project cost at the moment is at $66.3 million. We are on track with the development team to have our GMP estimate in September, so we can have approval of the final GMP at our October 19th meeting. Timing now is for construction to begin in December 2009, with completion in May of 2011. The next meeting is scheduled for September 21st, and that will be devoted to design detail concentrating on the first floor and public access. We will also go over the results of the traffic study and discuss how roundabouts might be used in this project. The other meetings that we have planned, as I mentioned, are the open houses on September 22nd and 23rd, the September 28th public meeting with input on budget, the IOB reuse, GMP estimate, and financing options, and October 5th, which is saved for any additional information that you may desire or that we may need to gather together. And then the final decision point is October 19th, where we will review with you the final costs, the GMP contract, and the go or no-go decision. With that, Mr. Mayor, I want to address any questions that any of you might have. And Mr. Sousa, as far as the question of the employee parking and things like that, the 34 spaces underneath the City Hall will be reserved spaces basically for the City Council members and senior staff members. And so that would be department directors and people like that. The public parking is at the surface along with the employee parking, and it's surrounding the facilities. So the parking will be within, I believe it's within like 100 feet of the City Hall.
So basically what you're doing is taking our space from the surface and putting it in the basement.
Yes.
Okay, before we open it up to council and questions, I'd like to give the private sector, Rob Langford, an opportunity to speak, and then we'll open it up to anyone from the public who would like to speak. Rob, you can sit right here if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. First, I want to acknowledge my partners here tonight, Eric Judson, GMI Sports, Eric Wilson with Phelps Development, and Gordon and Carrier Johnson. Gordon's not here tonight, but he's here in spirit. And I also want to just continue to acknowledge the amount of work that this city has gone to develop this the city center plan. I think it's we've done a lot of projects in a lot of cities, and I really applaud all the efforts and the ongoing number of years of efforts in coming to where you are tonight. And I also say that we've certainly recognized the economic situation in this good year in Arizona and in the country, and I look forward to supporting, and our team looks forward to supporting anything financially prudent for the city to do. We hope that is to go forward as planned. We really do, and we're fully committed to our side of that bargain. And we are very anxious to, even in today's economy, to get started on not only the public facilities, but with a very active campaign to promote the private facilities. I mean, we're really in this very much together, because not only do you have your public facilities that we hope to build for you soon, but you're also leasing us the land. And the way our contract works, the more value that can be attributed to the land goes to the city. That's the land lease payments that we will make over the years are going to be a function of the fair market value of the land when we exercise the option to lease. So even though there could be some delays and some phasing, we're very committed, and we encourage, however, that the vision is not lost, and that if there's some delays in it, then we understand that. We're going to be promoting anyway. We're going to go out and promote, even if it's just the library, which we think is a pretty good creative idea to get going to the library and some infrastructure and delay the city hall for a bit. We're going to still be.
You're talking about combining the city hall with the library?
No. One of the options that I think city manager talked about was going with the library and some infrastructure. And again, that's only one of the options. That from our perspective, that would be a significant statement. It's not as strong a statement as we all like to make to get the city hall and the library underway. But what it says to your constituents is that this city center plan will be implemented. It might be phased a little bit differently than what you explained tonight, but it will be implemented. That will allow us to very actively and proactively and aggressively promote the private sector part of this, which will, in the long run, inure to the benefit of the city in terms of land values that we create together, really. So, again, we would love to see the financial report such that we can go as planned. We are very committed in any event. We are committed to support whatever decision you make, but it's important to us that when we begin our process of promoting the project, and I say that probably more in the private sector part, but we'll also be promoting the public sector part, that we can all talk together about this project, even though it's phased, will be the city center that we've seen tonight, and we'll include the city hall, and we'll include in latter phases the other public improvements. And as long as we can say that together, whether we start with all of it or just phase the library first, if that's the idea, and then the city hall, we will fully work with you cooperatively in that effort and very much be out promoting the overall project. So, again, we applaud your continued efforts. We understand the economic issues that we're all facing in various projects, but we're here to work with you closely.
Thank you.
In your opinion, we're on a downturn in the economy. So what percentage have you found in construction, the reduction in building and, developing a city center like this? I mean, I guess, John, we've gone with the estimates of what's happening out in the economy, what percentage. If we did this 3 years ago, you know what the price would have been.
Yeah.
But that's not 3 years ago. Now we're in the bad times. So it would seem to me that sometimes that can work to an advantage for a city because they can build something much less than they could have at the prime time. So I guess I'm looking to both of you, in your opinion, where do you think those costs, how much have they lowered?
Mr. Langford, could you please, over here, could you please speak into the mic so our viewers can hear what you have
I
to
think,
say?
Councilman Lord, that our experience, if you look 3 years, it's been 30% probably.
So 66
Reduction in cost.
66 million represents what now? 30% of that?
Well, I suppose.
Reduction.
They can't be that specific.
No, it's hard.
If you'd have been 3 years ago at the same point we are today, that it would have been a higher number, maybe by as much as that number. I mean, and I think our team and I think your staff would agree we've worked hard, and our design and construction folks have worked hard to get some substantial benefits in the project because of the cost reductions that we're seeing. The parking is one example. There are many other examples where that's kind of been the effect of.
I just wanted to point that out to the public, that is part of the formula at this time is lower costs than what we had anticipated.
And Councilmember Lord, the meetings that we've had with developers, basically relating to ADOT-type projects, but you were there, and the development community is using a price range which is totally consistent with what Mr. Langford said, of between 25 and 40% savings on projects to do right now. So that's what we're seeing out in the public marketplace, is between 25 and 40% cost
So
savings.
essentially what I'm hearing is if this project is delayed 3 years at the outside, you'll be coming back to us because in 3 years, there's definitely going to be a different price for this project. Is that correct? Is that a good assumption on my part?
Yes, very valid, very valid. And I would also point out that the interest rate environment is also going to change. And it's not going to go down. I think it's going up the same way as costs are.
Thank you.
Let me, before we proceed, we're going to have 2 open public hearings on the 22nd and 23rd of September, and the public is certainly urged to participate in this process by attending that and speaking out. But I don't want to deny anyone the opportunity today. If you'd like to say something, you certainly can do that. Billy?
I have a quick question. What's the timing of the phases? If we were to start as is planned, what would be the timing?
It's going to be totally market-driven.
Goes for a long time. Seriously, it does.
No, I think what she's saying, say you decided to build the city hall and the library.
Was it
Just what is that time frame?
Well, that time frame is the construction starts in December of this year, and we'd be moving into it in 2011. That's this phase one as we're currently planning it.
Right, and I would add that if the public facilities stay on that schedule, to partially answer your question, our contract says that we'll need to exercise our options to lease on a certain schedule. And we think we have enough flexibility in that schedule because we do have to be sensitive to the market. But you know, it's all kind of worked out with in the development agreement that our private sector will follow within a definitive amount of time pursuant to the contract, or sooner, depending on the market.
We're going, don't know.
when Ashley's in college?
President of the library, vice president at the county level. What is the feeling towards which of the two projects within the center would go first? The library, which I have an interest, I guess, or the municipal?
Mr. Mayor, what we're doing is we're looking at that right now. The options that I mentioned, we're looking at that as an option that the library alone would proceed. And I would say that that's probably more realistic than if there's got to be a change, it will be that the library will precede the city hall.
Okay.
Additional question on that. Would it be quicker to build that thing? Or
Can you answer that, Mr. Langford? I would
Well,
assume it would be.
Yeah, the library is a smaller project, so.
even with 2 levels or 3 levels?
It's one
Well,
level.
it's planned with one, so certainly that would be more expedient.
One level.
All right, we'll get to that on the 22nd or 23rd. Okay? Let's move to the council now.
Sorry, you've got one more.
Is that
Oh, you've,
That one in the
got
back.
Roger back there?
Roger?
I'm sure this is a pleasant, sorry.
Roger, can you come up a little closer? I'm sorry, because there's no microphone back there, and there are a few of us that unfortunately can't hear.
And we need to remember the people that are online right now watching this.
Oh, yes.
So they can hear.
You could even speak in a microphone if you want.
I have a mic, Roger.
As I'm sure you're all aware, I don't support this project, and for a number of reasons. We continue to have our slowing economy. Our new tax reports have come out. Sales taxes are down. Property taxes are down. And with the economy, I don't understand why we'd be spending $67 million on this project, whether it's general funds or government bonds. It still comes out of taxpayer sources eventually. I would just ask at this time that if Langford is really dedicated to this project, then they can step up to the plate and say that in 5 years they'll come back and do the same project and look at the same project. But at this time, I don't think it's appropriate for the city of Goodyear, and I would ask the city council and everybody involved to scrap the project in its entirety at this time. And part of my saying this, and I'm sure you've heard me say this before, I have 20 years in commercial real estate finance. I've underwritten over $25 billion, most of which was commercial real estate loans. In those 20 years, I never underwrote and signed off on a bad loan. And I would not underwrite this deal and would not approve this deal based on the finances of the city of Goodyear itself, nor based on the finances of the state of Arizona as we stand right now. I think we need to delay this for at least 5 years, and I would ask that you do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, seeing no further comment, let's move to council. And Rob, if you'd stick around, and questions could be coming your way. We'll go this way. All right, we'll start with Joe.
A couple things on the financing, and when it comes to the right time, can we get a breakdown on the estimated annual operations of each option?
Yes, we will have that for you.
Okay. And the reason specifically I ask that, because my understanding with the library is we have a contract in which the county is paying a certain percentage of that operational cost. So if you could show the total in what the county kicks in, so we can see the net, that way the public can see what the county's kicking in and what it would cost the.
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be. I don't know if it's a viable option or not. And again, I'm coming as a latecomer here, but the multi-generational facility you have down here, other considerations. And again, I don't know what that costs. I have no idea what it costs to operate, but if you could just kind of put that one of those down there, would be just kind of nice to see it.
Thank you, we will.
Okay? That's all. Thanks.
Okay. Councilmember Antoniak.
Just the timing, the GMP, if we're to go forward, the October 19th, you would bring us a maximum price that we would agree upon. But if we don't go forward, essentially, would we revisit the GMP in a year? Or are you still providing us a GMP October 19th? I assume it's got to fluctuate.
Well, I think the mechanics of the contract allow for a 3-year delay, but the way I read it, it anticipates that you would approve the GMP, and then if you elect not to build either or both, City Hall and Library, you just put it on hold. And then that would trigger the 3-year delay, as I read the contract. So the GMP would be approved, but it would be, subject to, if you did put it on hold, then it'd be subject to a reevaluation when
So
the
it is
time
a
came around.
flexible number then for you. Okay. And then just to clarify, we were talking about the $66.3 million for the project as currently sitting in front of us. Was that today's dollars, or was that when we entered this discussion 12, 18 months ago? What date line does that number represent?
Well, my team would tell you that that number has been the kind of the do not exceed number from the staff since we kind of got going, which was about a year ago. So what we've done is, and as I mentioned earlier, what we've done is designed to that number, and have been able to include things that we otherwise wouldn't have had it not been for the construction economics today. But that number has been right there in front of us from last October.
Okay.
So it isn't, today's dollars would buy that, but they've been designing to that number, knowing that number.
So obviously, when you come back 2 years from now,
There'll be less in it.
it'll be more expensive and less in the buildings.
Have you led any projects in this current market in the Phoenix metro area since we started this?
No.
What about in your other markets?
We are about to implement a lab research project in San Diego that's, we have seen in the last year, we've seen the ability, just much like I just said, to include in that budget higher level of finishes, more, additional stuff that we could not have afforded a year ago.
So you're adding value to the contracts instead of actually.
Well, we're trying to hold the budgets. We're just adding value to the buildings, to the project. Right.
So we shouldn't anticipate, given, I'll use your example, John, you footnoted ADOT currently, or recently. But we wouldn't anticipate if we were to go to market a savings at the market based on that 66.3. We would venture to guess that we would be at that 66.3. I know on the road construction side, even current day, we're seeing as much as 10 or 12.5% reduction below engineer estimates. So should we anticipate that in this market, in this project?
Contractor partners have a comment about that? Or Mary?
Are you seeing that in your sector?
You know, we have to be careful here because we're going to enter a negotiation, and we don't want to put
don't
either
wanna do
side
that,
at
no,
a
no.
Okay,
disadvantage.
all right, well, and that's fair.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I'm just curiosity.
I'm Eric Wilson again. I'm with Phelps and Hensel Phelps Construction Company. Your question about market conditions, we definitely have seen a drop in pricing, and in this project, we've been, as Mr. Fishback said, we've been developing the program and the design with this budget in mind, and have included features in it that are included within that budget, and have had the ability to enhance the building as a result of that. Whether the price would come in below that is, I can't really predict. It's certainly possible, and with the guaranteed maximum price structure you have, you would get the benefit of the competitive pricing when it comes in. But we have used current market data as we have developed the design and the program and the budget.
That's an important point. The guaranteed max price concept, any subcontracts that are bid later, which, you know, will be the case after the contract is agreed, any savings accrue to the city. So even, I mean, you're protected at the GMP level.
Right.
But then as the sub-bids come in and everything's confirmed, if there are savings, which there could be in this market, they would go to the city.
Sure, I'll have more questions. But
Oh, go ahead.
no, I'm chewing on it for now. I'm good.
Okay, Councilmember Souza?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I've been sitting here for 11 years waiting for this project. It looks like I'm going to wait a little bit longer. And I look around our sister cities, Tolleson, Avondale, Buckeye, and recent newspapers show there are city halls being built and occupied, and here we sit. I remember when I first came on this council, Steve Cleveland sat me down and showed me the architecture drawing that they had in mind back when he was city manager here. And basically, the idea that these people formulated back then are holding today in some form or other. I'd like to see this project go ahead. I really would. And I realize, you know, that we're in financial straits. And that's a cautionary thing, and we'll discuss that at the time we come to the finance section of this program. But give me an idea of how you feel, you know, once the city is being built or being under construction, and you are bringing real estate into the picture that is going to develop income for the city. How do you see that moving along with early construction of the city center itself?
Well, I certainly,
Give me an idea where you feel.
I
don't want to pin you down. But.
I understand. I certainly, there's no question that staying on the path that was planned will hasten the time when we can start private sector developments. There's no question about it. The City Hall, frankly, is key to that private sector development. Library is very important. City Hall is, I mean, that's the city center. So as soon as that can get underway, and as soon as we can make it clear that it will get underway, and again, maybe there is a delay, but as long as we can be definitive that it will get underway, you know, with a short delay or whatever, then we can promote a project, Councilman Souza, that nobody else can talk about in this region. I mean, I think this is a remarkable opportunity to, and the way we've structured this, to enhance the land value, your land value under our private developments, get the city facilities that you've been planning for years. And, you know, I'm not, our intent, I'll just answer it this way. If the city stays on the schedule and we start construction this year, we've anticipated that we're going to shoot for trying to get our first private development going within a year to 18 months. And it's a mixed-use development. So it's not all office, it's not all residential, and it's, you know, certainly retail. So with the City Hall committed, and with the folks that brings to the city center, you know, even though the economy hasn't, you know, gotten cranking up yet, and we're not quite sure when that'll happen, I'm I'm fairly confident that we can stay on that schedule. But, you know, it is impacted by when the city hall is commenced.
As a partner in this endeavor, what type of financial assistance can you give the city, you as a group, as a part of the partnership? Any?
Well, the $1.5 million was, you know, that's.
Any more than that,
That was
that's for
something,
sure.
yes, thank you.
That's a far cry from 66. That's a far cry from 66 million.
Going for two, huh?
I'll take that one under advisement.
Well, I mean, you know, we're talking about a partnership here, and partnership also means financial assistance, but be that as it may, I just thought I'd throw that out. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good point, though.
I think Frank's going to speak first.
Councilmember Cavalier?
Okay. I'm very interested in the library, and I hope that if nothing happens, we get that library going. But also, I'm very curious about what the county is doing in finances toward the library. Now, in your private sector, Mr. Langford, you've got a lot at stake here, putting in those, what you're going to lease, the land that you lease from us that you build on. And I'm concerned about two things. One, the level, the economic level of what you build. I've heard stories where they said because of the area and where it lies, the only businesses you can put in there would be fast foods, and that won't do it. As we all hope won't happen. But the other thing we're talking about in the residential, that it'll be a high enough level residential that it will be a very nice community of townhomes or townhouses or whatever. And I'm concerned too with that and the other three quadrants of that city center and how it will impact Sun MP. Are you working with Sun MP so that it all comes together? We don't just build our quadrant and just hope for the best from Sun MP, but that we work with Sun MP to see that this all comes together so that we're all one unit in the end. And I guess on top of that, it brings me to the point of saying, to me, it has to be a community project. It has to be a project for the community. And I think that community thing comes first as far as I'm concerned. I guess that's why I see the library as number one. But it must be a place, it's a gathering place. It must be a place where this community comes to be a community. And what you build in there and how it impacts what Sun MP does and what Sun MP builds, I think will impact everything we do in that city center. And I'm very concerned that we are very cautious that we build in that manner and it become a project for the community. Can you respond to that as far as how you see, well, first, how you see your private sector being built?
Well, the whole concept, Councilman, has been keyed to mixed use, which means that we can and will be able to diversify our risk in terms of product type from retail to office and residential. As to the residential component, our country's gone through obviously a major upheaval, and I think in a way that's will lead to we're not there now, but it will lead to a situation where the supply side is constrained in residential, and that's not tomorrow, but I believe it's coming. And I think that a project that's got the energy and the planning and the commitment from the city of Goodyear like this one is going to out-attract other projects. So we've done a lot of projects in a lot of different environments, but this one has got the characteristics that if we do it the way it's planned and something like the way it's planned to be phased, then And we build these projects in the sizes that we've planned. If you notice, we're not, none of these projects are huge. The last one is about the largest, which is an office project on Australia. But as we go through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, they're not significantly large projects, and they are mixed use. So we're not going to try to hit the market with anything that's got too much supply compared to the demand. Are we working with SunNP? We are certainly working with SunNP on a planning sense.
Well, I mean on that.
Yes, we, however, do have our private interest, and they have their private interest, and we're going to, might be chasing after the same rabbit every once in a while. But I think we all understand that. But we certainly are working with them in a planning sense. So we're confident of the product type.
That's the concern I have, to make sure that it does have to have the diversity in it, but it also has to have the quality. That quality has to be up here. And I'm hoping that that's what you're
Well,
thinking.
we are, and we were driving around today and looking at some of the office product that's in the Goodyear market, and it doesn't measure up to what we're talking about. And when we see the city of Goodyear and their city hall in this location being able to attract the kinds of professional organizations, whether they be law firms or accounting firms or whatever, that are capable of paying the kind of rents that we're going to need to make a very high quality project. So, and again, if we go back to day one when we first got exposed to this opportunity, when Mr. Judson brought it in, that was a key thing for me that I saw, where we could mix the public commitment and a private commitment in a well-planned, master-planned quadrant. And that makes a huge difference, in my opinion, and that's why we're so confident. Still, I remain confident that this economy is not going to stay here forever.
Well, we've been working on that, and that quality is the thing that I've been pushing for since I've been on this council, and I want to make certain that we keep it up here. We've done pretty well so far, but we've made a few mistakes, but we've done pretty well. And I want to continue raising the bar, and I think that's one of the reasons you were picked, because your reputation and the background with what you come to us with, and I think that had a lot to do with it. So.
Well, thank you, and that's we're very proud of that, and we will continue that in this project.
Okay, thank you very much, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Well, I'm not a proponent of backing off, turning my back on the city center in hard times. I understand the sensitivity of it right now due to the economic downturn. People have lost their houses, lost their jobs. I think the city manager did a good job of explaining how we can finance this. I think it'll have to be on the part of the total council to decide whether they're going to go library and park, or they're going to try all three together, or whatever their desires. But we're a forward-thinking city. We've done a lot in this city, and we continually extend our hand out to make it a better city. And I don't want this city to die in a vine, because we're all chicken. We're not going to take the steps you need to take in economic development to continue moving our city forward. And some of these are going to be real hard choices, and I don't know what we're going to vote on. We may be really criticized for it. But I would like to be somewhat aggressive in choosing one of these alternatives. John, my thought was, let's give something to the people. So the library and the multi-gen and the park was something that benefits our public. Our public needs, they need space to run their meetings. Most of the homeowners associations do not have a place to meet. We have, the police association doesn't have a place to meet. I could go on with a list of people in Goodyear who, in order to have a public meeting or a club meeting, they have to pay a great deal to get a room. So most of them are not doing it. So to me, let's do something for the public. And either of those two options, the public library and the multi-gen, does furnish that. So.
And the entertainment.
Pardon me?
Don't forget the entertainment.
Oh, the entertainment. No, I agree we need all of that. But the other thing you have to realize is that we're trying to attract some special economic development to our cities. We're trying to attract people who are creative, who want to contribute to our city, who want to do the best for our city. We have a great group now, but we want more coming into our city, and we want better jobs. And I think this is all connected. I think it paints a picture that we're aggressive here, that we really care. And again, I go back to all of those meetings. That's what the public wanted. So I'm hoping we move forward.
Well, and let me comment, that we see the city center, and it's certainly fed by the other things that the city has done, the air park, and the plans for the air park. And there's a lot of employment creation that you guys have already anticipated and started thinking about and planning. This, from an office perspective, will become hopefully the hub of how those folks are served professionally, and that's what we see in addition to a residential. And if the library and a park is step one, that's fine. We support that. We'd love to do the whole thing, as I'm sure you would. But as long as the city hall remains in the picture, then we can stay committed to that at some soon point thereafter. That could be, we're fine with, and we endorse that decision if that's what you do.
Okay, just a couple points I'd like to make. One is, as we continue over this analysis process, if we could have a report on what are the competing requirements. For example, we're going to have to use secondary property taxes to pay the carrying costs on this. What else would be competing for those monies over the next couple of years? Yeah, that's great. And then what costs would be eliminated or greatly reduced by us moving to this city hall? For example, we're in 190. We're in Veneta. We're in different, police are down a couple places. By moving that group into City Hall, do we save money and how much? And how do those costs compare with the carrying costs associated with the loan on the City Hall and library?
We are calculating all of that for you.
Okay, and then also we need a calculation on and it's hard to do, what is the impact, the potential impact on economic development? We've got the two teams. We're building up Estrella. The whole thing to me all along for the city center and the city hall was the city hall accelerates economic development in that particular corridor. So can we calculate, quantify the impact of the city hall being there or not being there and what that does in timing to economic development? And the last thing I had is, we're talking about a go, no go. Can that, you're the two parties, the city and Langford, can that just be, can we have a decision to extend that 6 months, for example? Instead of putting it off, just say, we extend it 6 months and then we'll decide. Can we do that? And does that make any sense?
Can we at any time in that 12 months come back and revisit if we?
Yes, we can. I mean, so in effect, we can do that.
I just thought having a date specific requires action.
And we can do that
And
too.
I'm not really strong on it. I just think it makes a little bit of a sense.
Well, I think
36 months. Wasn't it totally 36 months? Where are we?
You can go out 36.
36.
But we could, if these are the two parties, you could decide on a postponement, never affecting the 36.
Right.
In early 2010, if you.
Yeah, and, things are going to change in 6 months. They may get worse, they may get better. No one in this room knows, frankly. No one in Washington knows, so.
That's for sure.
Are you saying, if you delay the whole project, but say you went ahead and built the library, and you started in December, I'm just saying, and then the library was built and the economy is really coming back and it looks like, could we then start a city hall? I mean,
Yes, we could.
We don't
Sure.
have any.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, again, the way I understand the contract, assuming that the process is followed in the contract, you can then put either one or both on hold for 36 months, as the mayor said. You can elect to build the library right away, and then you can elect to build the city hall whenever you want to within that 36-month period.
I have a question, though. We do have a time limit on the library with the county.
Yes.
So that is,
That is, we have 5 years basically to,
how many years have we used up on that?
I think, 1.
Well, we had 5 and 5, wasn't it? 10?
Yes.
And we've used about the 5. It's something like that.
Okay.
Do you know
So
what it was? Okay, it's.
we
we've
have
used
3 years left? We've used 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
But the value in postponing it keeps the momentum. Everybody wants, not everybody, most people want to do this. And it keeps that momentum up. Maybe, if we, anyway,
That's called hope, too.
yeah. Any, Rob?
You got some very valid points. I'd echo the financial. I mean, I was asking a lot of financial questions, but it would be really important to understand the total CIP and the impacts to the CIP if we were to make a go decision on this or not. Question maybe for both John, you as City Hall staff, or Langford and Associates. Have you contemplated, we have a little bit of a chicken and egg scenario going on here between the private side and the public side, and I hear you talk about the fact that the public side is so important in order to incubate the private side here. Have we talked about perhaps trying to expedite both in the sense of, I know the retail market isn't really strong, but are there corporate folks during this down economy that are perhaps flourishing in their particular sectors? Are we looking at them and trying to get them to locate here through other economic development means in our department, but perhaps maybe we partner with them and we go at the same time instead of a chicken and egg scenario, such that we make a deal with another private party corporation and chase them, and they're going to move in 500 employees or 200 employees at the same time we break ground together on our city hall and our private side. Have you given that any thought? Is there any validity to that thought? Perhaps it's something to ponder, chew on over the next couple of months as you're coming back and forth to us. Because I'd personally be open. I think you're dead on. Emotionally, we're all vested in this process. We've been sitting up here for some folks for 20 years talking about this process, others of us for a decade. But the private and the public side are so codependent on one another on this project. I don't know.
Well, I think in the leasing world for office space and office tenants and corporate users, they are sophisticated enough in our experience to know that if we were to talk to them about a project that was to be a companion project or a part of a project, a mixed-use project with public and private and City Hall, they'd be glad to get quite serious with us, assuming we can find one. Right now we're spending money developing our marketing plan to do just that. And if they were to come down to lease signing day and say, okay, now we're ready to go, what can you tell us about the city's commitment? As long as there was some definitive statement, so yes, I do think that parallel paths of our marketing and our aggressively leasing with in mind that here is the environment we're asking you to move into and sign a lease in. As long as they can see that at some point that's determined, definitive, that the public facilities will be there, they'll go. And I don't disagree at all, Rob, that'll be a part of our campaign anyway. That's something we want to be able to talk about. And
you know what I'm saying? Because part of the cost
there's one that might be interested, frankly.
I think part of the cost effectiveness of this is the leases offsetting some of the capital costs on our side, obviously. That was part of the reason.
Well,
because into this.
Sure, we could take, just look at the annual income from one of the leased properties that we intend to pay you, and that's not insubstantial.
Because I think taking advantage of the down market is nothing to shake a stick at and just dismiss a project and scrap it.
Yeah.
Well, I think a question could be asked by the public is, well, we've driven around Goodyear. There's a lot of areas to rent. There's a lot of commercial areas to rent. So my question to you, is it more attractive for companies to be in a city atmosphere like the civic quadrant's going to be? Is that for you, as a marketing that, an easier opportunity than it would be, say, to fill some of the other vacant buildings in Goodyear? I mean, that I can see the public saying, well, we don't need another office building. We've got availability on Litchfield Road. And
But this just isn't another office building. This is a
That's
part
what I'm-
of City
that's
Center.
what I want to
And
hear.
One of the things that we've somehow done, and whether I planned it or not, I don't know, but when we look at opportunities to develop land, I damn near look for the most expensive land, because I know that there's a reason that it's the most sought after, and that's because that is the prime place to be, and this is exactly what I think we can make City Center. And so, yeah, it's going to cost more rent than they could otherwise get in a two-story tilt-up, across the highway. But
You wonder whether there's more people, too.
yes, and the kinds of firms that we want to attract here, the quality of the firms we want to attract here, they know they're going to be paying a little bit higher rent because they're going to be in a better location. So,
And I know this is to come later, but what does the university affect in your marketing?
I can't quantify it, but it's big. It's certainly big from the retail perspective, and I think the residential perspective, and maybe even the office perspective. I mean, I think there's a lot of corporations who we've done business with that do business with universities and like to be in that environment. So, it's certainly another major plus on the horizon. It's hard to quantify, but it's certainly going to help.
Okay. Everybody good? All right, thank you, both
Thank
of
you
you
very
for
much.
that. Appreciate
That's it
it.
for now.
Break?
Yeah.
Let me, we'll break in a second here, but we're going to go next with the universities. Dr. Michael Crow was to be here, and he still may be here, but I'll talk to David about that. But David, are you going to want to start off? Yes. Okay, so how about 5-2 on this clock? Can we do that? Okay, thank you. That is to receive a presentation by Arizona State University and Franklin Pierce University on their planning and their expectations, that sort of thing. And they're very thankful for both of you coming. Pass it to Mr. Fischbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. We have with us this evening Dr. David Young, who is the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at Arizona State University, and Dr. Raymond Van Riet from Franklin Pierce University, and they will be making their presentations. So, David?
Thank you, John. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, first of all, as you can tell, I'm not President Crow, and I will not try to be President Crow. He sends his apologies. He was called to an emergency meeting with the president of Arizona Board of Regents, and he had to be there today. And I sent him an email and told him we're still going. So if he's available, he may be on his way. I don't know. So, but it's a pleasure to be here and to continue the discussions that you all invited us into last spring to talk about some of the higher educational opportunities that exist in Goodyear. And so what I'm going to do is run through a presentation that talks a bit about what we're doing conceptually with respect to meeting the needs of the state in terms of producing more baccalaureate degrees, and then get down to some specifics about what that might look like if we were to proceed with the partnership that we've been talking about with the private universities, the City of Goodyear and Arizona State University. So let me start off by talking about the concept of the colleges at ASU. The Arizona Board of Regents has been working on for some time a strategic plan. That strategic plan has been completed. And as they look at the year 2020, it's become very clear that for the state of Arizona to be prepared to move forward in the world that we see ourselves in today, we're going to have to increase the number of baccalaureate degrees produced in the state by about 50% by 2020. And then this past April, Governor Brewer charged the regents with developing new business models that are accountable, predictable, and affordable to the taxpayers, parents, and to students. She got very specific in her charge to us, as you might expect. defining what accountability is, what predictability is, and what affordability is. But most importantly, pointing out that Arizona is very different than other states the size of Arizona. And that is, we currently produce the majority of our baccalaureate degrees, at least in the public side of this endeavor, in research-level universities. And moving forward, that's simply too costly and inefficient. So to address the goals of the Board of Regents and the governor's charge to the Board of Regents, ASU's plan is to create several baccalaureate degree granting colleges to extend our programs to the various communities across the state and to potential students living in those particular regions of the state. As we look at developing the colleges, we have some ideas about what it is we're trying to do. We want the colleges to be very learner-centered and learner-focused. They need to be collaborative. We need to be partnering with community colleges. We need to be partnering with private institutions. We need to be partnering with a number of organizations in this endeavor. We need to keep costs contained, and the costs need to be lower for students who are attending the colleges, at least compared to the university campuses. And one aspect of containing costs is, in fact, to limit the number of degree programs, and initially we would limit the number of degree programs. We're looking at campuses that eventually would be somewhere between 1,000 and 3,000, perhaps as large as 5,000 students' head counts. And most importantly, the colleges will have an extraordinary commitment to student success, community impact, and most importantly of all, teaching excellence. We've developed the concept of what we would look for in initial degree programs. These would be most likely in the area of business education, especially elementary education, programs in the humanities and social sciences. These are general concepts. Each of these colleges, as we develop them, will be driven to a certain extent or to a large extent by the needs of the communities in which the colleges are embedded. We will have very different focus, perhaps, in some of our rural parts of the state than we might have in more urban parts of the state. So if you look then at ASU at moving forward by 2020, what does it look like? It looks like this rather unreadable document that I have in front of you. I can't either. I have it in front of me, so I can tell you what it says. But basically, you can think of ASU then consisting of three elements. What we're calling the university. And those are the four existing university campuses. The Tempe campus, the downtown campus, the West campus, and the Polytechnic campus. That is what we're calling the university. ASU Online is kind of the bridge between the existing university and what we're proposing, that is the colleges at ASU. And with respect to the colleges, we basically are looking at least two models for the development of the colleges. One model is to partner with municipal partners to develop the colleges and campuses, much as we've been talking with you about. And in some parts of the state, our primary partner will be community colleges. And that's especially true as you look at some of the more rural parts of the state where it makes most sense to partner with the community colleges. And so how many of these will we develop? We don't know. More than one and fewer than N, whatever N is. But we're looking at the first college to be open and accepting students in the fall of 2011. I should add we don't know where that will be yet, but that's our general plan, and that's the mandate that we're working under from the Board of Regents. They would like it the fall of 10. It's a little late in the process to try to get one off that soon, but definitely by the fall of 11. One of the things that came out of the meetings that you all hosted in the spring was an opportunity for us to talk with some of the private universities that you've been talking to, particularly Franklin Pierce. And through the process of your summits, we really, I think, came together to think about some elements that might define what this project would look like in Goodyear, which we, I think, have been calling potentially the Goodyear Higher Education Consortium. One that by partnering, we believe we can be, in fact, cost-effective, and more importantly, we can be innovative in the way that we go about delivering our programs. This notion of learner-centered is first and foremost. Particularly, we believe that we can develop, by reconceptualizing the way we do our curricula, that we can actually put in accelerated degree completions. Accelerated by the fact that we focus on learning outcomes and outcomes-based curricula as opposed to seat time in a classroom, so that we actually could reduce the time it takes for a student to get a baccalaureate degree to 3 years, and that's done not by students going year-round and going full-time, 12 months a year for 3 years, but instead by actually reconceptualizing and redesigning the curriculum. And we had a number of conversations with Franklin Pierce about how that might be done and how they could be part of that initiative. It'd be fine with me.
Will this influence our high schools? Like in Europe, where they do the 3-year, they have a 13th year in their high schools. So would you be looking at trying to improve the high schools level so that they would be more prepared by the time they entered that first year of college? Do you have any anticipation of working?
Yes, the answer is yes. We, in fact, there is a separate project, a group under the auspices of President Coors Center for the Future of Arizona, looking at that right now, of bringing together ASU, the Maricopa Community College District, Phoenix Union High School, the state of Arizona, particularly the CTE, the Career and Technical Education people, to really get together and work on developing clear pathways, career pathways, so that students would be able to, while they're still in middle school, would be able to go online and research. Well, if I'm interested in a health career, what are my opportunities? What kinds of things do I need to do in high school to be prepared to move on to the university? So yes, there are a number of efforts going on right now within the state to really look at what it takes for high school students to be prepared, so that we're spending less time. Arizona State, by mandate, cannot do remediation, but the community colleges spend a fair amount of time of having to remediate to get students up to speed with respect to oral and written communication, and most importantly, math. So yes, that's an important part of this. So based on our previous meetings, the 2 summits, and our discussions with, particularly with Franklin Pierce, we really do, ASU does see this as a unique opportunity to build something that at least I'm not aware of would elsewhere. I mean, if you look at the Claremont Colleges Consortium, those are all private universities. I happen to be a graduate of Claremont Graduate University, so I know a lot about that consortium, but this would be very different. We do think that ASU could be a catalyst for moving the project forward, and I know you've heard President Crow say this, and I'm going to say it again, but ASU is committed to expanding opportunities for students in the state of Arizona, and in particular expanding opportunities for students to attend private schools. And we see that as a critical component, and frankly see this project as the potential kind of as a proving ground to show that we actually mean that, and how we could go about building a vibrant higher educational consortium in Goodyear. We're prepared, and you should be prepared if we move forward on this. And I listened to some of the previous conversation about the City Hall and the importance of the university. But you should be prepared, and we are prepared to leverage our assets that we would bring to the table. We bring a ready-made educational infrastructure. We have a world-class library that could complement the library that you're looking to build. It would certainly complement the needs of our private partners in this endeavor. And we think that's an important consideration to keep in mind. And we really believe that this partnership between the city and ASU will produce synergies and significant synergies for attracting additional private sector partners, whether those be additional universities or whether it's the kinds of activities you were talking about in terms of economic development and how an institution as ASU could be part of that effort, and I mean an active part in that effort, not a passive part. So as we've studied this and taken a look at the benefits from our perspective and what we would hope you would see as benefits, I really think it would help, building this consortium would help solidify the city's focus on a knowledge-based economy and what that means moving forward. We see this consortium, and if we were part of it, is all about building a successful Goodyear. There are, we believe, strong economic development components to this. Not that ASU is an economic development engine, but we can be a part of your efforts and would be an active participant in your efforts. And just the fact that the highly educated workforce that you would be able to boast is, I think, critical to moving forward in many of the development activities that you're interested in. The kind of cultural and intellectual diversity that this consortium would bring to the community, we think is extremely significant, and I know that Franklin Pierce feels the same way. Again, the same is true for the lifelong learning opportunities for the citizens of Goodyear, and I think it would bring to the city the kind of national recognition as a community that really is committed to a sustainable future through the education of your citizens, and particularly the education of your youth. So what does all this mean in terms of what we might do to move this project forward? And I think it's important to emphasize that we understand the economic situation that we are all in, and that as we move forward with, in particular with municipal partners in this endeavor that ASU is engaged in, we realize that to get something done by 2011, that we're looking at starting off in temporary facilities and as a startup, so to speak, to get this thing to proof of concept and to get our colleges moving forward. So with the appropriate kinds of commitments that we would need to make that happen, we would be committed to opening ASU College at Goodyear in temporary facilities with a target date of 2011. We see and we think our numbers indicate that a first class would need to be around 300 students. I'm talking head count. Long term, we would project that this might be a campus that could support, now I'm talking ASU only, I'm not talking what the total consortium would be, because that would depend on Franklin Pierce and the other institutions that we would recruit. But the ASU component would probably be around 3,000 students, and whatever our initial programming would be based on market research, and we're starting that market research right now statewide, not specific. It would include Goodyear, but as we're thinking about where we might do these colleges throughout the state of Arizona, we're looking at the entire state, with a heavy emphasis on Maricopa County, because frankly, right now that's where the majority of people are and the majority of students. So if you look at, I think it's very important to think about this clearly in two phases. One is a startup phase, and that is identifying a temporary facility. And city manager has been working with us to take a look at what might be available. We've retained some architects who have looked at the kinds of facilities that are available throughout the state, including Goodyear, and those might be junior boxes or vacant retail facilities. And we actually have some pretty good schematic and conceptual designs of what we might be able to do in a junior box or a big box. And it actually works pretty nicely. And you don't have to worry about parking. So, but it actually does work quite well. And so ASU's investments in this endeavor, certainly in startup facilities, it's still to be determined what that would take. But at the 3,000 student build out, and this is based, these numbers that I have up here are based on our project in Phoenix, which I know most of you are aware of, and what size magnitude project that is, much larger than what we're talking about here. But based on that project, we would anticipate at 3,000 students, ASU's investment would be somewhere between $15 and $25 million a year in operations, and we would anticipate, and these are rough estimates, of somewhere between 400 full and part-time employees at the college in Goodyear. And then what does it take to get to the longer term? And right now, we don't know what that longer term is in terms of time, because it's going to be driven by the economy and by the ability of our municipal partners to be able to help us with respect to capital investments. And so so if you look at capital investments, first of all, there's the land, and if you look at if we were to proceed with this endeavor, the 60-acre parcel that's already been set aside for the universities, whoever is on that site, but the universities in general, would be where we would be longer term. Short term, we've looked at the cost. We think it's somewhere between $3 and $5 million. It really depends on the site, the facility, what the TIs would have to be would cost to get it so that we could deal with probably with a student body of around 1,000 students, since we would anticipate that this short-term startup phase could be anywhere from 4 to 6 years, who knows, but it would be somewhere in there. So if you look at 1,000, that's about the cost it would take, and we see that as a shared investment. We would expect the private, if the private partners chose to perhaps locate some of their activities in that they would be part of helping with that startup. And then long term, a permanent facility. Again, this is based. These are numbers that would be based on having 3,000 students, but that's somewhere in the range of 35 to 50 million. And those numbers, I have City of Goodyear listed here, but those are the numbers that we've developed conceptually for any of the college. It pretty much doesn't matter. Well, I shouldn't say that. It matters in Maricopa County, for example. These are the numbers that make sense in Maricopa County, that if we were to enter into a partnership with a municipality in Maricopa County, that these are the numbers about what it would take to be able to long-term have a facility that would accommodate 3,000 students.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What portion of that 35 to 50 million would Arizona State undertake?
What portion of the
35 to 40, 50 million?
right now, our plan is that we would not undertake any of it.
It would be on our.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Next steps, this is a suggestion. It's just a suggestion, but if we're going to really make a decision as to whether or not this is a viable option, we need to get down and do some brass tacks and some actual planning of how we would do this. We need, if we were to shoot for a 2011 opening, even in a temporary facility, we would need to start the marketing of that program in the middle of this coming spring, in the spring of 2010, because the really active recruitment of students happens in the fall of 2010 and the winter of 2011 in order to have a class. So our proposal, our suggestion is to have to establish a planning committee. These are some recommendations of who might be on it, but that we actually have a plan completed by the end of this calendar year that would show that this is feasible, that we're ready to move forward, so that we can begin the process of actually implementing the ASU College at Goodyear. Mm-hmm.
Who established the planning committee?
I made it up. It's just recommendations. You can put,
Figure the 2 to 3 city staff members are going to be.
Well, I would hope John would be one of them, and other than that, I don't know.
And you're not considering anybody on this level?
It's
been left out of this process.
Okay. This would need to be a collaborative planning process, and these are recommendations. I think we need the city to determine who they want, and ASU, I can tell you ASU, it would be myself, Rich Stanley, and Eric Godino, and that's all I have any control over. The rest of the group would be whomever you recommend to be on it. And that's the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for inviting me to be part of this presentation. Just for context, I just want to reiterate, we're here to support ASU as being an anchor in the higher ed consortium, and so we're not really reporting out on Franklin Pierce in detail, but rather in the context of supporting ASU coming into this project formally and committing to this project. As you know, Franklin Pierce University has been committed to the mayor and your council's vision from the start, and we've made a sizable commitment not only in spirit but in financial wherewithal, and I'll get into that in a little bit. The council and mayor you have dared to begin designing the community of the future for the 85% of the residents who have not yet arrived in Goodyear. Your courage and conviction has been recognized nationally by awards designating Goodyear as an all-American city and one of the most livable cities in the country. I was part of that All-American City campaign. I was proud to be a part of that because I believed in what Goodyear stood for, and as a future citizen of the city, I certainly felt that it was important to put my personal energies behind it as well as being a part of the team. There's little doubt that the higher education consortium initiative will continue to transform and distinguish the city of Goodyear in the coming years. Those of you, and I know there are a number on the council, who are familiar with Richard Florida's research and writings on the creative class, and how to attract the creative class to your community, know how important universities are to that success formula. This initiative is about creating high-paying jobs, high culture, diversity in community, and the opportunities are the future. Franklin Pierce commends the mayor and council for their proactive stance in positioning this community for long-term sustainability and success, and we are proud to be associated with this project. Some highlights on Franklin Pierce's commitment. We don't just talk, we act, and we have outcomes to prove it. We've done a lot of this in partnership with and in council with the city, but we've also taken our own initiatives in that context as a private nonprofit business in your community and in this state. Franklin Pierce has already invested over $1 million in startup capital in Goodyear, not in Avondale, not in Surprise, not in any other city, in Goodyear, Arizona. We have a leased facility today on Litchfield Road of over 8,000 square foot, and we have an option to extend that all the way through 2012 if we need to. We invested $850,000 during the last fiscal year alone, most of this in salaries, benefits, and leases. That's real money on the table, risk taken by Franklin Pierce, nobody else. We have budgeted 9 full-time positions for this year at an average annual salary of $63,000. Those are good jobs. They could go elsewhere. They could stay in Goodyear. We are making a bet on Goodyear. We are taking risk in Goodyear. Another 5 positions will be added in the following fiscal year. 6 academic programs have been approved and accredited for this Goodyear project. On the graduate side, we have a Doctor of Physical Therapy and an MBA program approved. On the undergraduate side, we have an accounting, human services, management, general studies programs approved, and nursing is on its way. And as we indicated in an earlier presentation, we are very proud to share with you that we have 20 doctoral students in the physical therapy program who are currently taking classes and actively enrolled on Litchfield Road in our facility that we have leased in the city of Goodyear. We project approximately $500,000 in tuition revenue in this fiscal year in Goodyear, with over $4.5 million projected over the next 3 years for just that program. That's not counting nursing. That's not counting any other programs. This is just the beginning. The future. We were very excited and we were quite inspired that by the inclusion, the consideration of including ASU in this project. And that came out of the blue. We weren't expecting it. We'd already we were well into our strategic planning and implementation. As you all know, and one of the reasons we're sitting here today, the world has turned upside down. Economically speaking, housing has plummeted. Commercial is vacant, and so and on and on. I don't have to tell you that. But one of the reasons, like we're sitting here, and I passionately support the inclusion of ASU, and Franklin Pierce does as well, is because I think this brings an opportunity to the city of Goodyear and to Franklin Pierce University that we would not have had otherwise. I think in the context of the downturn in the economy, Franklin Pierce University had to take a big gulp, as we all have, and take a hard look at whether we continue with this project, as many business people have in this community. Many have left. Some have stayed and downsized. And you know the rest of the scenarios. But the entrance of ASU into this project changes that in our minds in terms of the opportunity sitting on the table. It gives us something to look toward that makes the scale of this project so much larger than it could have been, that makes us take a very hard look at making almost an even more significant investment of time and effort in this project. I'll highlight some of the more important outcomes that will flow directly from an ASU-anchored model, which is what we're anticipating with the Higher Education Consortium. Clearly, there's a tremendous potential for national focus on the innovative public-private higher education cluster that we're contemplating. And as you know, we got a lot of very good play from All-American Cities on the university project. We've been in countless publications around the country. Franklin Pierce, the city of Goodyear. This was an important project and brought national attention. And with ASU in the mix, I suspect, and the 3-year model and some of the innovations that we're looking at working jointly with ASU, I think this could be a model for the nation for efficiencies, an efficient delivery of quality higher education that will expand access for peoples all around the West Valley and attract people from all over the country. California especially, and some of the markets that abut Arizona. You know that our physical therapy program alone, out of the 20 students, 9 of those students are from out of states. They're in Goodyear. They would not have been in Goodyear if Franklin Pierce wasn't in Goodyear. Those are outstanding professionals in acute workforce shortage areas. The original project timelines will be accelerated if the ASU anchor model is pursued, in my reckoning. Franklin Pierce would be in a position to complete build-out of its part of the campus by the end of 2017, compared with the original anticipated date of 2021. Now we're talking about full build-out. Franklin Pierce would reach its daytime capacity of 1,100 students by the end of 2018, compared with the original projection of 2026. The ASU College's proposal, which David went over, would also provide a lower-cost alternative, thereby increasing public access to higher education in our community. And building on that and leveraging off that, and this is something that Franklin Pierce couldn't consider without ASU. Franklin Pierce would consider adding a number of complementary undergraduate degrees matching the proposed college's pricing structure, which for private universities and colleges would be unfathomable, but the numbers would certainly make it work, and the association with ASU would be a strong draw. And we would include majors like accounting, human services, criminal justice, general studies, and potentially a couple others. And this may add approximately 600 to 800 students over and above what we originally anticipated. That's a lot of revenue. And the New Hampshire Institute of Art and the University of St. Francis, the partners that we've been talking to over the last 3 years about entering into this project with us on our 30 acres as we have it right now, have responded very positively to the proposed ASU anchor model and are more likely to accelerate their participation in this project as a result. The Goodyear Consortium would be in a position to offer the academic attention, and I think this is really key, of a small college with the facilities of a great university. And I'm excited by that. And I think it'll set Goodyear apart, and as David said, somewhat of a unique and capable of replication around the country. In conclusion, and as a wrap-up, Franklin Pierce strongly supports ASU's recommendation that a planning group be formed to move this collaboration forward. And a planning group with the contingent understanding that the business model proposed by ASU is not something that would not be considered as we move forward, because a planning group that goes nowhere has no value. And we would like to see, as we go forward, we need to make concrete steps. As you know, Franklin Pierce has made concrete steps from day one, and you can see from the outcomes that we have delivered that we're serious about being here, and we're serious about making progress. For us to take 3 months and not have an understanding of whether ASU is coming into this project or not would not benefit us. As such, we ask the Mayor and Council to endorse this important initiative, and we sincerely thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. Before we go around the table, anyone from the public wish to comment? Yourself.
I have a question and some concern. I think with Senator Johnson in Texas, his wife said that a university school buildings around a library. If you want a library, hopefully we'll have it at that point in time. I'm also seeing statistics that, and I got 2 ASU graduates, one of my daughters, the kids, the students are not showing up at campus, they're online. How is that going to impact us who live here? Are they going to be children, students roaming the campuses, or are they going to be sitting at home somewhere on their computers?
Did you get it?
Understand what he was articulating.
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you look at this diagram, the colleges are not part of ASU Online. So our model calls for the college campuses to be campuses where students come to campus. There might be some offerings that are online, but it's not an online approach. We already have that. We don't need to duplicate that again. So as we've gone around the state and talked with communities, the communities we've talked to all say the same thing. They want their students to be able to have access to higher education in the area, and a lot of so it's not an online proposal. That doesn't mean students won't do some things online, but we would limit the number of online courses on the colleges.
So they will be on a campus.
Absolutely. We're talking about building campuses. Now, initially, we don't envision these to be quote-unquote residential campuses, but in a project such as the one you're talking about in Goodyear, we certainly would hope that there's residential facilities that would be in the private sector that students would be able to take advantage of so they could be close to the campus. Now, we're talking about building campuses. We're talking about building, as the core of the ASU facilities, a vibrant, living, learning resource center that is the hub of the campus. We envision, depending again upon where we do these, we envision the possibility of retail and food services and everything you'd expect on a college campus, but at a scale that is appropriate for what we're talking about here in terms of 1,000 to 3,000 students.
Okay, thank you.
I think in part, some of that question revolved around would we be able to get students with a trend seeming to favor online education. And obviously David provided the context there. But the programs that Franklin Pierce is introducing are, for the most part, are programs where students have to be on campus. Physical therapy, the nursing, a physician's assistant program that we're bringing on board. And then for the programs that we would add to the pricing structure that ASU has, accounting, human services, criminal justice, and so forth, the real draw there in the national debate is how do we build degrees that allow us, the families, the students, to reduce their debt load and thereby increase access and so forth, and get them through, obviously time is money, and not to be crass, but as David said, this isn't going year-round. The students will still have their summers off, but we would build a program jointly that would allow us to satisfy the concerns of the national debate about colleges being too expensive and limiting access, because at some point that bubble bursts, and we could be at the forefront of that.
Could I say?
Yes.
Also, as Raymond was just indicating, the curriculum that we're working on for the colleges, particularly with respect to general education, wouldn't really work online. So we're designing a unique curriculum for students who are on a campus. We are working to so to speak, offload content to online and ask students perhaps to get some content on their own. We don't think we're currently using self-directed learning enough, and that there are things that students can do on their own, and that's where the online and where the technology comes in. But the curriculum itself is one that's based on students being together, interacting with faculty, and frankly interacting in small groups with other students. And one of the exciting parts about the curriculum that we've been thinking about is the notion of having students from Franklin Pierce and the New Hampshire Institute of Art commingled with our students in some very creative ways.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead, come on.
I just want to ask one question, and that was, if ASU is not part of this, is Franklin Pierce still dedicated to sticking with Goodyear as Goodyear is with sticking with Franklin Pierce?
That's the $64,000 question, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, respectfully, I have a fiduciary responsibility to my board and the board to the institution, Franklin Pierce University, and we really, we had to take a hard look at our business model when the economy plummeted, as every business has a duty to do, or they go out of business. And so the entrance of ASU into this equation significantly helped refocus us in terms of what was possible here and basically supersize the project. We have to look continuously at what the environment is that we are working in. We are committed. We have demonstrated by our efforts, and as I outlined, the investment we have here, the leases we have here, I don't think you can question our resolve here. However, should ASU not come in, we would certainly have to look at that business model again from scratch. But we are in Goodyear, we have programs in Goodyear, and we will continue to be in Goodyear, but we would certainly have to look at our strategic plan.
Okay, thank you. Let's start on this side this time, and we'll go this way and then that way. Okay? Councilmember Cavalier?
All right. I have very little to say and very little to question because I guess I've asked a lot of my questions beforehand, but I'm very much in favor of this because this will bring something very unique to the city of Goodyear. But I do have one question for ASU, and that is are you further ahead in setting up a campus here in Goodyear than any other place in the state, or how do you see us in that realm? Are we pretty much the head of the pack, or have you done this with other communities?
I can assure you we're further along in these discussions in terms of the concept with the city of Goodyear. We haven't had the kinds of interactions with other municipalities yet. Our phone's ringing a lot, though, so those discussions have started with other communities, and we will have them. But we're further along in terms of the concept, and obviously I've attended at least two or three of your summits and then this meeting. So we're further along here.
I'm very impressed with the idea and the whole concept that ASU came up with in working with these other colleges and universities that are going to be here, and the fact that this is what ASU has needed for years. You've become a very large research university, and it's very difficult. It was very difficult for me. I did my work there, my doctoral work there, and it was very difficult to get through that school because it's so big. And working through this and having these smaller colleges around and working with these other higher education institutions, I think is one of the best things that you have chosen to do. And I think it will be the answer to a lot of people's questions and a lot of our education concerns. This is one state where we've had, 3 universities cover the state forever. And now other universities are coming in, and ASU has chosen to work with them, and I think that's a wonderful concept. So I pretty much, all I can say is go for it. I support you 100%.
I should add that in the preliminary discussions we've had with other folks, that this conversation is very different because of the consortium concept. Elsewhere, what we've been talking about is a single, ASU on a campus and perhaps in partnership with a community college. But we haven't had this kind of a discussion where we're talking about bringing in other universities, in particular other privates.
Good. And this will lean more toward the with both of your universities. This will lean more toward liberal arts education than it will or what do you plan as your curriculum? Is it more in the liberal arts field, or?
Well, business, elementary ed, humanities, social sciences for us, but in the social sciences, we would probably focus on psych and political science and those kinds of social sciences. We would certainly tailor it in different ways depending on where we're located. But to a certain extent, it will depend if we move forward with this project. We would need to work with the other universities to make sure that what we do is complementary. We don't want to be competition. So
you can go back and forth, and the student
Correct.
can take from different
well, in the
universities.
model that we've been talking about, yes, because as Franklin Pierce has indicated, they would, and Raymond's indicated, they would price their baccalaureate programs in the same pricing that ASU is doing. So we envision students moving back and forth among and for the students it would be transparent. And that is the way it works at the Claremont colleges. Students take classes, Pitzer doesn't have engineering, so if you're at Pitzer and you want to take an engineering type course, you go over to Harvey Mudd, and so that all of that would have to be worked out. But that's what we envision: a seamless movement of students, with each of the universities obviously carving out their own unique niche to make it viable financially, but a lot of cooperation and collaboration.
Thank you very much.
That answers one of my questions, because traditionally a private university costs more. And, the question has been, how can private universities compete if you come in, and so I see you've been working through that.
Yes.
I have to tell you, the big gasp I have, and after you sitting through this evening listening to the City Center, is that Goodyear has to finance this. And that means to build the buildings. And so that is sort of, where are we going to get the money? How are we going to do this? It sounds like it has to be a quick decision turnaround.
No, I think we were talking.
May I respond to that?
Yes, please do.
No, I don't. We're not asking. ASU's not asking for a quick decision on whether the city is committed to building a $50 million facility. What we're asking for in order to move forward is a commitment that that's at least on the table. That down the road, wherever down the road is, and given the economy, that's going to be a while, that it would be an option that the city would actually consider. This isn't we don't believe that this is a decision, go, no go, with respect to that now. But in order for us to proceed with a startup, we would have to know that that's at least a possibility down the road. So if you were to tell me today that it's never going to happen, then we will move on and talk to other cities and see. We will be opening one or more ASU colleges in the fall of 2011. So I hope that responds. It's still, the goal could be put off for a while, I guess, but that is in fact the case.
That's all the questions I have.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Along your
Along my
lines.
line?
Right.
Mhm.
Sure, thank you. ASU, the middle letter is state.
I'm sorry, what?
The middle initial is state. Later on, when you form the consortium and you form these other colleges that are going to be spotted throughout the state, do you anticipate that you might be including some segment of the cost or the contributions to the city that go into this program with you into your budget?
That is a possibility. It really will. It depends on what happens with the economy. Right now we haven't had any enrollment growth money at ASU. In other words, the state contribution to our enrollment growth in several years. We are anticipating moving forward with these startup colleges without state funding, which makes it very difficult to run on simply tuition. But we have developed a model, if we keep the number of programs limited to start with, where we think we can make it work. We have to be very efficient in our delivery. We have to limit the number of courses, et cetera, et cetera. Down the road, the financial model becomes different if, in fact, we're able to get state funding for enrollment growth. As you know, there's a difference between the way that the universities are funded and the way that, for example, the community colleges are funded. So the community college support that the community colleges receive is primarily local support through property taxes. That doesn't tend to, well, it'll change somewhat depending on the number of people in a community, but we don't have that same level of local support So if you look at the numbers between the Maricopa community colleges, they're receiving more local support per FTE student than the universities receive. And so that's a number that often isn't talked about in terms of the lower cost of going to a community college. It is true, tuition is much lower. But some of the subsidies and local support for those community colleges is actually larger than what ASU receives from the state when we receive it for our enrollment growth. So the answer to your question is, 6 years from now, if things turn around and we start to see that kind of growth, yes, the model changes. Today, we aren't, ASU would not be in the position to build buildings. If you look at, and the reason for that is because of what I just said, almost all of the tuition revenue is going to go towards operations. So if you look at the investment that ASU will be making in terms of that, I mean, like Franklin Pierce, we would be hiring a number of faculty and staff to get the startup underway, and we will make that investment because we'll have tuition revenue. But it's a very tight budget, and in fact, in year one, with only 300 students, we actually will lose a little money, and we'll have to subsidize that out of general revenues of the university. But there simply isn't there aren't the resources there for the capital. So if you look at the way ASU has developed over the years, we've either gotten land and buildings from the state, or we've gotten land and buildings from a municipality, and this example, as you know, is the city of Phoenix. So that's how we have acquired land and facilities in the past, and that's how we envision doing it moving forward.
Thank you. Sure. Thank you.
I'm all done. I don't have many questions.
Joe?
This is probably more for probably for the attorney more. What are some of the challenges of getting a $40 million voter approval and for public buildings from your perspective?
You asking me?
No, for the attorney.
Oh.
Well, Joe, I think the first question is, do you have any bond authority right now? Councilmember Pizzillo, we're working through those issues right now. I think the first question is, do you have any bond authority on financing this type of project right now? And we're working with bond counsel to clarify whether the categories contained in our current bond authorization would cover such a building. So we're working through that issue. That's the first threshold. Second threshold is this something that falls within municipal authority. We're working through that question as well. So those are the first two threshold issues that we're working through, both of which are surmountable. We think that there are solutions there, but there may be some groundwork we need to do on the front end when working with the council and with the universities.
The reason why I ask is I suspect you're probably looking at a committee to put together, because you probably don't have enough bond authorization at this time with the city center and other buildings that you're talking about. And if there's any other legal issues dealing with charter or whatever, as far as, educational facilities, if it doesn't fall in that category. So that's kind of the reason why I kind of asked that question. Those are some of the things that may have to be, I would suspect, worked out no matter what plan you have if you decide to kind of go forward.
It's absolutely correct. I don't think you have enough authority to do both projects under your current bond authority.
Right.
That's all.
Okay. Councilmember Antoniak.
Everybody's all concerned about my comments because I know I've gotten phone calls before the meeting. Let me first preface my remarks. I've worked in your field as a student and as a professional for 4 years, and wholly and definitely believe in our state's constitution of providing an accessible, accountable, and affordable education to the students of the state of Arizona and locally within our citizenry. And you have a challenge in that it's supposed to be in the lower third of the United States in providing that education from a tuition standpoint constitutionally. And so I respect and understand the financial situation that you're in as a state educational institution. And that you have to look for alternatives and you have to look for different ways to deliver that education. And I think it's important to bring a state education and a private education into the proximity of the Southwest Valley and the residents of Goodyear and other folks and beyond our walls within the city. That said, we ventured down this path of education and higher education in the city, and it was under the auspice of a private higher education, and it was a far different model than I had ever been used to as a product of one of the 3 institutions in the state. It was something that excited me from the alternatives and the choices and the accessibility to education from a proximity issue, maybe not a financial accessibility issue. And it was something that I bought into under the auspice that we had no local capital involved in that beyond the infrastructure or the investment in the land that we have and that we're bringing to the table. That model got flipped on its heels here 6-8 weeks ago. As the conversations evolved, and now all of a sudden we're talking about land and then a short-term startup of 4 to 6 years, and then at the end of that 6-year period perhaps coming to us for $35 to $50 million, which I think we may or may not be fooling ourselves if that number doesn't grow between now and that 6-year period. And so it's that back end that I'm concerned about. I was discussing with some of your staff before the meeting today. I think there are some things that I need to understand from an economic development standpoint before I was to buy into a capital investment of that nature, a niche standpoint of how are we serving students differently than we are today outside of the proximity issue. Driving 40 or 45 minutes taking an express bus to downtown right now, it's a 25-minute ride in the morning if they want to access a campus. And so from a proximity standpoint, I have to be, or from a standpoint of a capital investment, I have to be convinced that there's an economic development upside to this for us as a local municipality and the responsibility of the taxpayers. There was a added value or added bonus that both Franklin Pierce and UIW were bringing to the table in terms of a discount in fees and tuition, and I don't know if ASU has that same ability to do that given your state constitutional authority or your ability to provide a discount to Goodyear residents. But if you're asking for a $50 million commitment from local property tax to be backed by that, I think the residents that pay those taxes to back that bond ought to have a benefit, regardless of the institution that's there. And so those are some of the things that are begging questions in my mind as you go forward. Is there the ability to bring the private sector? When ASU very early started talking about expansion in Tempe, there was a partnership with Motorola and Intel and a variety of other private sector. Is there something we can do on this side of town? You just heard us talk about City Center and wanting to leverage and get a private sector partner, and I talked about maybe paralleling those paths in order to bring that to bear. Can we bring this trio of local municipality, state institution, and private equity partner to bear to benefit the residents of the Southwest Valley? That's definitely stuff that needs to be explored and needs to be planned. If that means a planning committee, so be it. That planning committee ought to be transparent. It ought to be held in the public forum, and it ought to have an audience. It ought to not be held behind closed doors. I know there are times that you need to get behind closed doors, but thus far this process has been I don't want to say it's lacking transparency, but I think it begs the question of transparency if we are going to be talking about a commitment of $50 million at the end of the day. And I think that transparency has to go from the start. The thing that frustrates me the most, and maybe this is your niche market, is perhaps your kickoff ought to be in state budgeting and educating people about state budgeting. And I can go round and round and round on this, but this is the thing that frustrates me most about this. And I was called a hypocrite last week in private, and rightly so, because we funded I-10 and we funded baseball, and now I'm questioning funding education. But this is an institution that is a responsibility of 91 individuals and the 9 that you have on the Board of Regents. And I haven't heard a financial commitment outside of operating budget from them on any new capital investment in higher education in the state. And for somebody that was ingrained in that industry or ingrained in that profession, as you are today, it is utmost frustrating to me. And I brought thousands of people down over my 4 years in that time advocating for that on the Capitol steps and the Capitol lawn. And I'd be happy to help in that endeavor again. And I talk to my legislature all the time. But it frustrates me that the gamesmanship has become more important than the responsibility of those 91 individuals down there. 90, pardon me. I think there's one that's taken the responsibility quite seriously. But that's the thing that frustrates me, that it's put you in this position that now you need to explore creative options that comes to us asking for $50 million from a local community when we're already taxed with providing the health, safety, and welfare of the local community through that local tax base, and now we're asking to leverage that for a statewide name. So my frustrations are out on the table. I don't know that you can quelch those frustrations. Those are frustrations that are going to be out there for years to come. But if you're to plan this and come back to us in 5 to 6 years, 7 years, and asking for $35 to $50 million, and you expect me to answer that tonight and tell you go forth and I'll be with you at the end of the day, I can't tell you yes on that today. So that's where I'm at.
All valid points.
Besides yourselves, who else is in the consortium?
Formerly, well, actually, it's just Franklin Pierce. To me.
That was going to be my answer.
Technically, Franklin Pierce is the lone man standing and the only one making a commitment. However, having said that, and we did invest sizable money in this already, so we're deep in him. Plus, I bought 2 houses. Not a good decision.
At a bad time, too.
So I'm personally committed as well. But we're talking to, obviously, University of St. Francis. They're obviously very interested, more medium to long term. New Hampshire Institute of Art, very interested in the short term, coming on board. And if things go well, ASU will be up in New Hampshire, meeting with us and New Hampshire Institute of Art next month. So we're looking to shore that up. I don't believe, given ASU's entrance, that we'll have a shortage of candidates who want to come into this. It's more trying to be selective so that we have complementary candidates who join this at the highest level.
You might be happy to hear this. I'm in the process of having some physical therapy.
They got the people.
Yes. And as I'm checking out, the young man who was along with the therapist was alongside my side as I was checking out. Where are you going today? So I take my final. Where are you taking your final? To Franklin Pierce. Made me feel good. Should make you feel good too. What
Yes, it does. We're very proud of that.
Yeah.
Just a
Thank you, Mr.
sidelight on the. I went to a class reunion, a school I used to teach in Denver, and one of my former students came to me and we were talking. I said, "Well, where have you been?" They said, "Oh, I've been in Montgomery, Montgomery. Is that it? New Hampshire? What's the name of the?
Manchester?
Manchester. I mean, I've been in Manchester, New Hampshire, where I went to school, and I graduated from the Institute of Arts. And I said, they're coming to Goodyear. Did you know? So this was quite a bit of excitement for that one student, but it just goes to show you that here is far off college of the arts, and now when I tell them we have an opportunity to bring them to the city of Goodyear, they were quite excited about the fact that, gee, our College of Art has come out here in the West, and but it just kind of was exciting to hear that there is an alumni from one of those institutions that I have encountered.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for coming, and a few other things, but to everybody in the audience, it is a joy working with Franklin Pierce and ASU and Hampshire Institute of Art and St. Francis. You people are dedicated and you're smart, and I just want to say that I've had the opportunity to work with you and have been for quite some time. The committee that we're talking about here, and certainly it'll be transparent, it has to be, and we welcome participation. And if someone feels like they have an idea about who should be on that, I think it's open, so let us know. But there's really a couple reasons for that. One is we've got 60 acres we've got to make a decision on. That's important to the entire city. You've got 30 of them already allocated to you, but there's another 30, and maybe you want to rethink your 30 in line with the consortium idea. We have to find a way to get ASU here in 2011, right? Yes. And that's this temporary facility. And I think we have to be able to show Dr. Crow and David and others that we are or are not interested in financing this. And that needs to be done, at least demonstrate that we are interested or not in the relatively near future. The funding itself is a different story. We do need to keep one thing in mind, which is that, in the baseballs, the two teams we have coming, we start to get, I don't know if the word is reimbursed, but we start to get money from STA in 2017. So there is money coming to Goodyear, and that will come for 20 or 30 years, probably, whereas right now we're paying the full bill. So the financial requirements for the city are going to be modified dramatically in the mid to late part of the next decade. We're an all-America city. There were 3 reasons. One dominant reason, and that was what we did to bring colleges to Goodyear. And they were all private, but it was the idea that this city, out of all the cities in the country, apparently, initiated that. And we need never to walk away from that. I think that's important. We have put money into, we're going to put money into the mall. We put money into baseball. We put money into Vestar. We put money into Westcar. We put money into CTCA. We put money, I think, into Macy's. And all those are valuable to us, but not one is as important as making this a center for higher education and the resultant economic development benefits. At least I see it. That's my opinion. I think it's not just teachers coming here and students coming here. You bring business here. Business, other types of employment will want to be in Goodyear. We've got the airport. We need something else to attract. And I think that can be done over, well, starting relatively short term, certainly over the long term. And the last thing is, well, 2 things. We don't want to fund this, okay? But it's a fact that you aren't coming unless we do. And Phoenix already is doing it, so you've got a model. And whether or not we want to or not, and we don't, it's a fact of life. If we want ASU, that's a price we're going to have to pay in the long run, in my mind. Okay? Is it negotiable? I don't know, but I do know you've been pretty clear about that, and so has Crow. And you've got an example of a city much bigger than we that already decided to do it. So, and the last thing is just, I firmly believe that Goodyear can become a great city, renowned throughout the country. And it will be if we bring higher education to Goodyear in a large volume, which is what really your end objective is. You're getting us for the next 10 years. It's the 10 to 20 to 30 that will signal that this is a great city, I think. And there's no limit to what we can become, in my opinion. Anyway, yes.
First of all, I'd like to thank Franklin Pierce. You have made a commitment. You've worked hard. You've put money down. And we're very proud of that. We thank you. Is there any way that we could do, I think, to help council at all, if we could put this on the website? I would love to hear the opinion of the people of Goodyear.
I think I can tell you what it is. This is their priority.
Well, I'd like to hear it. Not that.
Yeah, I know. You aren't doubting it.
I'm not
You'd like
doubting,
to hear
but I
it.
just think I'd like to hear that. Could you do that? And let's get some feedback from the people, ones that are already paying taxes that go to education, so I think they need to weigh in on this one.
Well, if we form that committee, that can be one of their tasks.
Yeah.
To do that.
Yeah.
We got to be cautious. We can't compare, and if we do it, we can't compare like for like with downtown. Everybody keeps bringing. I mean, you brought that up, Mayor, and I'll challenge this in the sense that there's a heck of a lot more infrastructure in downtown Phoenix than there is currently today. And there was a lot more infrastructure invested from a public and a private side that wedded ASU to downtown and that made it an attractive option for ASU in downtown. And that ASU will benefit from the cohesiveness that goes on in downtown Phoenix to its success. So to mimic the model that ASU and Phoenix did, I caution us in the sense that while it was probably financially responsible and had a great return and will have a great return. I mean, I'm down there as much as I am out here, and the gentrification that starts to occur this week is huge. the nightlife, you've got the interaction between the students in the sustainability world with the engineers and the architects and everybody that work down there. You've got the, health sciences and the hospitals down there. And so you have some synergy down there that doesn't yet exist out there. That's why from my seat, challenge you to think outside the box, talk to our city center partners, talk about how you're going to create that synergy. Paint that picture. We can talk about the economic development and the fact that you bring business and you bring a bunch of other ancillary benefits to us, but paint that picture, commit to that picture, and tell me what ASU is going to do beyond operating and maintenance that can be pulled away from you at the state legislature that commits you to not abandoning a city center as you go through that process. And that's when I'll become less vocal.
Very good points.
Is that a promise?
On this one, I'll support it, but I can't express it enough. I'm concerned about the state leadership in this state that makes your decisions financially, and us locally wedding ourselves to you when the state is trying to nickel and dime us left and right, left and right, and left and right, and that's what they continue to show us that they're going to do.
I think if you had a hand raising tonight, the room would agree with you. So I don't think
I know.
anybody here
It's
has much confidence.
No one would disagree with what
I
you
don't
just said.
disagree either. We don't want to enter into an economically unviable situation. So, because I can guarantee you that if we were to do this, ASU would be committing for the long term. You don't start a university campus and walk away from it. So,
Yeah, the long-term commitments by ASU far surpass what we would commit. So,
you know the history.
yes, I do know the history, and I'm not going there.
Fine, don't replicate it.
okay, good meeting, and we'll move ahead, and please give me your ideas about the committee. Okay.
I think you should have one more person on. I mean, if you're talking about a $50 million commitment, Mayor, I think you ought to have some balance on there. And it's not me necessarily. I think you ought to have one other member of council on there. Dick said it earlier.
Well, we could have two if you wanted, whatever, okay? As long as it isn't four of us. So, because that would be an open meeting violation.
But we welcome that.
And maybe we want legal. I mean, legal is a part of this. So let's think about it and make it a joint cooperative effort making Goodyear a better place to be.
I mean, the team from ASU is basically the two main folks would be myself, which has been charged by President Crow to build these things academically, and then Rich Stanley, who is our planner and who was intimately involved in the planning and the development of the downtown campus, and then, of course, anybody else that we need resources from. So, and I think it's important to remember, and you know this, but I'll point it out anyway, that the making the downtown campus happen was a true partnership with the city of Phoenix. ASU brought everything they could to bear on that bond election and moving that project forward. So. And I would envision that it would be the same here, that if we actually decided to go that route, that it would be a real partnership. So.
Well, let me assure you this, if we go along with you, this is going to be a partnership.
Absolutely.
I hope so, yes.
All right.
And I can commit to that.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this evening. Meeting's adjourned.